At 43, Fernando Alonso finally reveals the 5 drivers he hated most. You race for 23 years, you win 2 world championships, you fight Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull with nothing but raw talent and an obsession that never sleeps. Fernando Alonso did not just compete in Formula One, he survived it, he dominated it, and along the way, he made enemies that the sport never forgot. 55 podiums, 32 victories, 2 back-to-back championships in 2005 and 2006. A career that refused to end even when everyone said it was over. Alonso came back at 40, then kept racing at 41. At 43, he is still on the grid, still pushing, still refusing to bow to anyone. But behind the helmet, behind the stone-cold focus, there were drivers he could not stand. Men who disrespected the code, men who raced dirty when the cameras were not watching. Yet men who used politics instead of pace to steal what Alonso believed was rightfully his. For years, he said nothing, because Alonso understood one thing better than anyone in the paddock. You do not show weakness. You do not give your enemies the satisfaction of knowing they got to you. You go faster instead. But at 43, the filter is gone. No constructor to protect. No team principal watching his words. No championship on the line that silence could save. Just the truth, raw and unfiltered, from the most intense competitor Formula One has ever produced. Alonso was born on July 29, 1981, in Oviedo, Spain. He started karting at 3 years old. By the time he was 8, he had already beaten adults in regional competitions. Racing was never just a hobby for Fernando Alonso. It was the only language he ever spoke fluently. He reached Formula One in 2001 with Minardi. No money, no backing, just talent that was impossible to ignore. These are the 5 drivers Fernando Alonso could never forgive. Number 5. Romain Grosjean. Some drivers race hard. Romain Grosjean raced recklessly, and for Fernando Alonso, there is a difference that cannot be ignored. Grosjean arrived in Formula One with speed that impressed everyone in the paddock. But speed without control is not a talent. It is a liability. And Alonso learned that lesson at the worst possible moments. At the 2012 Belgian Grand Prix, Grosjean triggered one of the most dangerous first-lap crashes in modern Formula One history. His Lotus launched over the field, clearing cars like they were standing still. Alonso's Ferrari was directly in the path. The impact was violent. The race was over before it started. Alonso climbed from the wreckage shaken, not from fear, but from fury. He had done nothing wrong. He had positioned perfectly. And a driver who could not control his aggression had stolen a victory that was entirely possible that day. After the race, Alonso did not hide his feelings. He called the move unacceptable. He said what everyone in the paddock was thinking but afraid to say out loud. Grosjean was banned for 1 race. For Alonso, that punishment was nowhere near enough. The tension never fully disappeared. Every time Grosjean was near him on track, Alonso drove with 1 extra eye in his mirrors. Not out of respect, out of self-preservation. For a driver who calculated every variable, having Grosjean on the same circuit felt like a variable that could never be trusted. Number 4. Nigel Mansell. Nigel Mansell was a legend. Alonso knew that. The paddock knew that. But legends can still cross lines, and Mansell crossed one that Alonso never forgot. Their rivalry was not built on wheel-to-wheel combat. It was built on something more personal. Words, criticism. A veteran who believed the sport belonged to him and treated younger talent like an inconvenience rather than the future. When Alonso was rising through the ranks, Mansell dismissed him publicly. He questioned whether Alonso had the mental strength for championship pressure. He delivered his doubts through television interviews with the confidence of a man who believed his own legend gave him permission to say anything. For Alonso, who had fought every single day of his career without the backing, the budget, or the inherited respect that British drivers seemed to receive automatically, Mansell's words were not criticism. They were disrespect. Then came their time together in the paddock during broadcast appearances and official events. Mansell's body language told the story his words tried to hide. He spoke over Alonso. He redirected conversations away from Alonso's achievements. He carried himself like a man who refused to accept that the sport had moved forward without him at the center. Alonso responded the only way he knew how. He went faster. He won championships. He let the results answer every question Mansell ever raised. But the bitterness stayed. Because for Alonso, respect is not optional. It is earned and it is owed. And Mansell never paid his debt. Number 3. Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel won 4 consecutive world championships. Alonso knows better than anyone how good Vettel truly was. It's because Alonso was the man standing closest to him during every single one of those title fights, watching victories disappear through no fault of his own. That is exactly what made Vettel so difficult to tolerate. The 2010 season. Alonso led the championship. He was in control. Then Abu Dhabi happened. Alonso sat behind Vitaly Petrov for an entire race, unable to pass, while Vettel drove to the title. It was not Vettel's fault. But Alonso's fury needed a direction, and the man holding the trophy received the full weight of it. 2012 was worse. Alonso drove the most complete season of his career in a Ferrari that was never the fastest car on the grid. He dragged that car to race wins it had no business winning. He fought until the final lap of the final race in Brazil, and Vettel won again, by 3 points. Just 3 points after a season where Alonso had given everything humanly possible. Off the track, their personalities clashed in ways that never made headlines but lived permanently in the paddock. Vettel was celebrated. Vettel was loved. Vettel had Red Bull building a car specifically around his feedback while Alonso was fighting Ferrari's internal politics just to get upgrades approved. The contrast felt deeply unfair, and Alonso never fully forgave the sport for making Vettel's path so much smoother. Number 2. Lewis Hamilton. No rivalry in modern Formula One cuts deeper than Alonso and Hamilton, because it started before Hamilton had won a single race, and it never healed. McLaren. The same garage. Alonso arrived as double world champion, the established number 1, the man who was supposed to lead the team to another title. Hamilton arrived as a rookie who was supposed to learn. Instead, Hamilton matched Alonso lap for lap from the very first race of the season. The tension inside McLaren became impossible to hide. Alonso believed the team was favoring Hamilton. He believed resources, strategy calls, and political support were flowing toward the rookie at his expense. During the Hungarian Grand Prix, the situation exploded. Alonso held Hamilton in the pit lane, costing him qualifying time. The fallout was immediate, ugly, and permanent. Both drivers left the season without the championship. Both lost it to Kimi Räikkönen by 1 point, and both spent years carrying the damage that 2007 created. For Alonso, Hamilton represented everything that infuriated him about Formula One's politics. A driver protected by the establishment. A driver handed opportunities Alonso had to fight for with his hands. A driver who became the face of the sport while Alonso spent his best years in machinery that could not match his talent. The rivalry never softened. The respect never fully arrived. And the ghost of 2007 followed both men across every season they shared on the same grid. Number 1. Michael Schumacher. There was only one driver who truly defined Fernando Alonso's career through hatred, through obsession, through a rivalry that shaped every decision he ever made. Michael Schumacher. Alonso did not just want to beat Schumacher, he needed to, because Schumacher's shadow covered everything Alonso tried to build. When Alonso won his first championship in 2005, Schumacher's Ferrari era was finally crumbling. Alonso ended the streak. He broke the dynasty. At 24 years old, he stood on top of a mountain that Schumacher had owned for 5 consecutive years. It should have been the moment of complete satisfaction, but Schumacher never gave him that satisfaction. At the 2006 Monaco Grand Prix, Schumacher parked his Ferrari deliberately at Rascasse during qualifying, blocking the track and destroying Alonso's final flying lap. The move was shameless. The stewards stripped Schumacher of pole position, but the damage was done. The message was sent. Schumacher would do anything, sacrifice anything, break any unwritten rule to deny Alonso the moment he deserved. Off the track, Schumacher's presence was suffocating. Every record Alonso chased, Schumacher already owned. Every comparison made in the media reminded the world that Alonso was chasing a legend who refused to be caught. Even after retirement, Schumacher's name hung over Formula One like a standard Alonso could never quite reach in the public imagination. For Fernando Alonso, Michael Schumacher was not just a rival. He was the man who made every achievement feel incomplete. The driver who raced without boundaries when boundaries mattered most. And the one competitor whose shadow Alonso spent his entire career trying to step out of. That is why Schumacher sits at number 1. Not because he was dirty, though sometimes he was, but because he was the only driver Fernando Alonso could never fully conquer, on the track, in the record books, or in the minds of the sport that both men gave everything to own. Fernando Alonso never needed anyone to like him. He needed them to fear him. 5 drivers, 5 rivalries that burned longer than any championship ever could. It's Grosjean who raced without control, Mansell who spoke without respect, Vettel who won the titles Alonso deserved, Hamilton who took everything the establishment was never willing to give Alonso, and Schumacher, the shadow that never disappeared no matter how fast Alonso drove. These were not just competitors. They were the fire that forged the most relentless driver Formula One has ever seen. Because here is the truth about Fernando Alonso. He did not become a legend despite his enemies. He became a legend because of them. Every slight, every stolen victory, every disrespectful word pushed him deeper into an obsession that 2 championships could not satisfy, and retirement could not stop. At 43, he is still racing, still fighting, still proving every single one of them wrong. Some drivers fade. Alonso just burns hotter.